talk, we're going to be walking along a path outside of the classroom because we're talking about starting on your own magical path. And as ever, let's just get started and throw ourselves into it, shall we? Before you know it, once you've been travelling down your magical path for a certain amount of time, you'll reach a big clearing. So,
we're going uber esoteric today.
Yeah, uber esoteric today. So, how do you suggest people get started on their magical path? Because most of the time, it's a case of going on Amazon and buying a load of crap Wiccan books, isn't it? Isn't that what people do these days?
Well, people go searching for answers, don't they? And they don't necessarily have a person to go to, so they go to the bookshelf.
Yeah.
So, obviously, if you like Wicca, then probably start there. But if you're reading a Wiccan book, that's probably a good place to start anyway. Read a Wiccan book. If you think it's all rubbish, start somewhere else.
Well, the problem is, I think if you people will give up eventually. I mean, if you're starting from a position where you don't really have much experience in magic, you could order, say, I see a lot of people order, say, 10 books, 10 of the most popular witchcraft or magical or occult books from Amazon. And then they read them, think that it's a load of crap, much like the dog crap I almost walked in. And then get disheartened and think, well, maybe there's no such thing as magic. Maybe none of this. Then maybe none of it works.
Yeah.
Because
disheartened.
Back in the day, that was. Oh dear. Back in the day, that was never the case. It was always mentorship, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was always someone would teach you.
Master and apprentice.
Generally orally, so there'd be no necessarily reading, writing from a distance. It would be either apprenticing under someone else or joining some kind of mystery school if you're that ancient. But yeah, there's not so much of that these days. I mean, there are several people. There's probably more people around nowadays that teach than perhaps
ever before.
But in terms of the quality, I don't know what you'd say or speak to the quality. So it is easy for us to say, well, just go and do this or that, but actually for someone that is starting out, most of the people I find that we talk to, they're already on a magical path.
Yeah, we very rarely meet them when they're just starting out, but normally when they've got past the books and I'm actually like, well, what's next?
Yeah.
Or, I don't like the direction that it's going at the moment and I need to find a new direction.
So are there any good books out there that you can even recommend when it comes to learning?
I suppose all of them are good in one way, in the sense that
They tell you how not to do it?
So, yeah, and it allows you to kind of test your palate and find out whether or not you actually have an understanding enough to realise what's good and what's bad.
Well, I wonder if learning from books in general is a bad idea, just because maybe there's a reason why things were always done orally. I mean, I've tried to write books and things before, and when you're talking to someone, you're tailoring your words to a very specific person, and you're able to read that person and understand where they're coming from. With a book, because you never quite know who's going to read it, you try to give examples and explain things, but that doesn't register.
And you try and cater for the lowest denominator, don't you?
Yeah, and you never quite can.
No.
Because there's always someone thicker.
But
the thickest person that you think you know.
But then I think that's equally why people get so frustrated with these books, is because they're set at a level below what they want to be at.
Yeah.
But it's really hard, and we've discussed it how many times.
Oh yeah, I know.
To try and write an intermediate book. Where do you start? Like, it's so individually specific.
Well, no one's ever done it before, really, have they? I mean, in the past, why is it that people taught via apprenticeship? Why is that? It is the superior form of teaching for a multitude of reasons, but I think a lot of people don't necessarily know what those reasons are.
Well, at the end of the day, people are so individualistic that it's a case of no two students will ever be the same. They will not learn at the same speed, or even have the same natural talent. Like, you know, there is going to be an aspect of, you know, where are they already at when you receive them? Because, like I say, it's not like you're going to receive them as 2-year-olds in a preschool and then train them up to be I went to say baby witches again then.
Oh no, don't say that.
But, you know, you kind of have to cater that to an individual need, and I don't think a course can ever really do that. You know, that's why certain people get so frustrated with traditional teaching and curriculums, because they never meet everybody's needs. Somebody's always there behind, and it's down to that person to actually want to push further. So,
Well, I found that when it comes to the solitary practice versus coven practice, or we're doing stuff on your own and working with a mentor, there's a couple of reasons. One is that you get a feel for the other senses. So when you're reading in a book, you're trying to make everything happen, but if you've got someone that's not used to energy, you've got a mentor there that can raise the energy for them to feel the difference, to see the difference. But also when you get a group of magical people together, they'll synchronize.
yes.
You know, when we teach psychic ability, you can see the difference between getting a group of people trying to learn tarot or, you know, mediumship or something like that, because they all draw energy from each other and they resonate with each other. Whereas doing that just on your own is a lot more difficult.
Let's go off the beaten track. Not just metaphorically.
Off the beaten track. The crooked path is that we're on now. You say the path of witchcraft. So now we've taken our detour from the mainstream path of what all these Amazon books show you or tell you.
We're going into the thicket.
And we're going slightly more into the thicket to join another path, a path which you never really knew was here. And what is this path that you'd call? So you've gone from mainstream magical practice, the practice of witchcraft, to a traditional approach.
I guess so. Onto a slightly more organic track, I guess, where you've got an arrangement with a mentor, back and forth. You're still learning on your own capacity, but you've still got that catch. If there's a problem, you need to go back to that.
Because the thing is, obviously, there'll be a lot of people listening that's kind of like, well, I've read the books and I don't resonate with them, or I do really resonate with them, but when the book ends, they don't know where to go from that to push further.
Yeah.
So what about those kind of people? I mean, we've talked about mentorship and that kind of thing. How do people find mentors? Because the real problem is that there are some really great practitioners out there.
Yeah.
However,
But they're not out there.
they don't make themselves available.
No.
The real difference and the real truth of the matter is that witchcraft and the practice of magic has always been and still is extremely elitist.
Yes.
A lot of advanced practitioners, covens, groups of people that are practicing advanced magic, they don't train people and are not happy to even talk to people which are below their own standard. So if you think about joining covens and learning, it's equivalent of a martial arts school that will only train people that have already got a black belt.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Partly because a lot of coven work and stuff like that is basically groups of people trying to push themselves. So if you've got someone that's inexperienced, it can be a drain on the coven to have to train them from scratch, you know.
It also brings extra risk to
Yeah.
group workings. It's somebody else you've got to watch their back rather than necessarily, you know, it's not a sink or swim kind of process. And depending on what the coven's workings are, it will limit the work that they can do safely in a larger group.
Yeah, and the thing is, each practitioner coven, when it comes to witchcraft particularly, or old school witchcraft, traditional witchcraft in Britain and that, is about practicality and survival. It's ingrained in your culture. It's a tribe at the end of the day, so you have to contribute in some way towards that group in order to be accepted into it. Unlike in, you know, a lot of the new age and that kind of thing, it's very much a case of, well, everyone should learn, we should be open our doors to everyone and everything. When in reality, the real problem with, I think, in a lot of traditional witchcraft or the old-fashioned types of witchcraft and covens and advanced practice is it is a case of, well, if you're not able to contribute something to this group and make us stronger, we're only as strong as our weakest link, and that's not necessarily a good thing. What about solitary practice then?
The solitary practice is different. I think, although you might disagree, tends to be more of an intuitive work. So it's going to be based on how you interact with it. So you'll get so far in a book and you'll go, well, that doesn't sound right. But you have to be a bit more experimental.
I don't know. I mean, solitary at the end of the day is on your own. So if you're on a correspondence course, you could argue that that's solitary practice. You don't have that person that you can ask questions to or rely on, unless it's, you know, from a spirit perspective, which how many beginners often do.
Well, exactly.
Are capable of that kind of level of interaction with spirits. And the ones that do, it's normally from a natural basis, so they tend to gravitate towards a specific one. So say the psychic angel reading kind of type, or the working with the dead, or that kind of a thing.
Yeah, well, again, like I say, they're led intuitively, depending on what their natural ability falls under, and then moving forward through that. So there's no limitations. I just think that it's healthy to have that conversation with other practitioners.
But how often does that lead to a dead end? You know?
He's really going for esoteric today.
The thing is, right, because we need to kind of cut the bullshit, I think, to a certain extent. I mean, most people aren't willing to push themselves. And the people that are willing to push themselves don't really know where to push themselves.
Yeah.
So that can be a big problem. It's literally a case of, where do I go next? From the starting point, you can sample lots and lots of different things. But ultimately, I mean, we do teach. So what would we do if someone came to us and asked us, I'm interested in witchcraft, what do I do, or how can you help, or what do you suggest? What is it that we normally do?
Well, we would normally start with some kind of scratch test, wouldn't we? Which is where
So assess their level of what they're capable of.
Yeah, and then move from that onwards into what suits them. And then work on that with them every time, trying to push them onto the next little limit, into the next little limit beyond that.
Let's take it from the perspective that you actually meet us, because obviously it's all right to slag books off and other practitioners and stuff like that. So let's explain like our consultation process, because there's two main ways that people will approach us. One is that they are just coming from a consultation, they just want our opinion on how they can help, you know, fix a problem, that kind of thing. Another is that they are seeking mentorship. So that's kind of the two categories of, and most of the time people approach us from events and things like that we do, or word of mouth from other people. So say you've got someone, what was the last person that wanted mentorship? How did they approach you? Was that through word of
Last
mouth?
one was a referral, yeah.
Okay, so, referral.
I think it was a referral in tongue-in-cheek, and then not realising that that's exactly what they were looking for.
Right.
And then, it was just a random text going, you know, I've been told to speak to you about this. And then
Oh, you had a text message from someone who'd given your number out to some
Yeah.
random person, basically.
yeah. But you know, it turned out to be a really good starting point with somebody that really did need to kind of had an understanding, had done energy work before, but kind of didn't know how to push that into a practice, and had kind of read every book going and kind of like, none of these are really resonating with me. Can you help?
Right.
And then obviously in that situation, you know, has natural ability. Mentorship for me is always about, do they connect with the way that I work? Again, I suppose that's closer to a coven setting. Yes, I will teach people that don't follow a naturally rhythm, but I'd probably refer to somebody else like yourself, or another practitioner if it really didn't resonate with the way that I work completely.
Okay. That's an interesting point, because obviously we normally approach it from the client's perspective. So do you mean that from the perspective of you don't get along with them, or more likely they don't resonate with you? Because obviously you're more than willing to change the practice based on them. So is it really the clicking, like, relationship?
But we're talking about mentorship. No, it's for me, and I think it goes with any teaching. Finding the right mentor is more important than necessarily finding a mentor.
Yeah.
So like with client work, it's different. You're completing a service and you just meeting them halfway. Whereas mentorship, and for a lasting mentorship that is really going to benefit both parties, because that's how mentorship should work. It should, the mentor should learn just as much from the pupil as the pupil learns from the mentor. That is supposed to be how a proper mentorship works. So it's not, I'm not saying I would refuse somebody if they think, oh, actually, like, you know, I really resonate with you, at least from their point of view, then I would just try and bend to that. But if it wasn't working, I think it's important that a mentor knows that when they've got as far as they possibly can with a student, that really they should be doing what's best for them, which is moving them on to somebody that can take them where they need to go.
I think I think that what I struggle with that is that it's never actually happened. So I think that might be the case in theory, but we've never passed anyone on to anyone else. There's never been that need. So I'm sure, like, we would if we needed to, but I just can't off the top of my head think of a time where we've ever said, I'm not prepared to mentor you, or there's another person that would be better suited for you. But then partly due to how we work, I guess, is the fact that I don't know, it's one of those things that people are drawn to us, and people come and find us in the most weird, strange ways.
Yeah, but I think as the video is about following a path, I think it's important that obviously there are people outside of ourselves. However, we are amazing, but you know, there are other options. Obviously, obviously, Liam, like, why anybody else would want to go anywhere else, but my point is that,
well, there's always second
important.
best. There's always second best in there.
I think he's calling me second best.
No, I'm saying that obviously, you know, you're always going to have your top brands, and you're always going to have your kind of bargains and more Reggiani kind of brands. So I guess that, you could go somewhere else. I don't know why you'd want to. Come on, we got to big the business up here.
No, I get that. But I think in terms of mentorship, it's important to say that essentially you should be making sure that you resonate well with the person that you are working with. You know, there are reasons that you left your paths in previous parts of this time. So, you know.
Yeah, but what does mentorship look like to a person though? Is it something like, okay, well, you're going to move in and, you know, be a houseboy or something? What does that look like? Do you meet up once a week or something like that? Do you set them homework?
It depends on the arrangement, doesn't it? So if you've got somebody that is next door, then that's easy to arrange in that. So luckily we're in the day and age now where we can do things like this and do it virtually, and have just as much time with but I think it's whatever's necessary. Like, depending on what you're working on will depend on how much help you need. So, you know, if you've got to a particularly gritty part, then you might need to speak to your mentor every day, whereas you might then go a couple of months without having to speak to, because you're bouncing along nicely. Obviously for us, I think we both set kind of homework in some kind of basis, but that's just when the path's starting out. When it becomes more of an independent working with a mentor, then it's a case of they will come to you when that's necessary, and vice versa. They're not, like I said, with mentoring being that two-way street. If I then come to a point that I go, well, actually, I think you'd benefit from experiencing this next working I'm going to do. Do you want to get involved? Like, I'm a solitary practitioner myself, but if it felt like it had a purpose to actually involve another person, then of course you try that.
Okay, so if we break it down in terms of the services we offer and how we work, obviously you'll see us put out a lot of free content online. We do a lot of events that are free entry. We do workshops where we'll teach a specific area, condense that into an hour or a couple of hours and do a workshop on that. When you're talking about all of that kind of thing, then people will come and go from that. People that have specific problems or want to work through a specific issue will normally come for consultation work. So that will just be a case of, we'll help you fix that problem. Consultations don't normally last very long. We'll construct spell work, that kind of thing. So if someone says to you, you know, comes along and says, I've got such and such a problem, can you fix it? We'll talk to them about the problem and recommend how they go about fixing it. And if they pay us extra money, then we may sometimes be persuaded to fix a problem for them. Most of the time we like to help people fix their own problems, but it can happen the other way around. When it comes to the actual mentorship program that we're talking about, that kind of takes place either physically or from distance learning perspective. So really the benefit is, if you can meet us physically, then that's a little bit more of a personal one-on-one interaction, and we can bring you to events and train you at events, and you can kind of help out. You can have a go at doing consultations, that kind of a thing. So that's more like your classic apprenticeship type role, with an emphasis on what areas you want to learn. So if a position comes available whereby, you know, you're interested in tarot and we have psychic fairs, we will train you tarot and we'll give you clients, put you in the psychic fair, that kind of a thing. When it comes to the distance learning, that's normally done through the Patreon. So we normally charge £3, I think it is, a month. You get access to premium content and us. So what you do is sign up to that. We would talk to you either by phone or Skype or Facebook, whatever
works for you.
Find out where you're at, talk to you about what you want to accomplish, and then we normally will design a curriculum for you and check in. So think of it like the equivalent really is if you're talking about getting a personal trainer. Okay, so you have a personal trainer which you turn up at the gym and see, okay, and they set you homework. That's a physical meeting. But then you have online ones where you'll sign up, normally a little bit cheaper, and they will essentially, you know, do Skype calls, set you homework, check what you're doing, that kind of thing. It's kind of the equivalent of that. Now, if you're a physical mentor, if you're being physically mentored, you'll still get access to all of the online content that we have. So you'll still get access to the Patreon and all of the details, videos, course material, that kind of thing on there. The real difference between us and other people is that we'll design a course for you. We don't have cookie cutter courses. That's the kind of point of hiring someone like us to teach. This is not a set curriculum. Every student that we have will be doing something slightly different, because it will be entirely based on what they want to accomplish, and we'll give you whatever you want.
Come to the dark side, we've got cookies.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you've talked about morality a little bit. I mean, we do have a YouTube video all about morality where we go off on a massive tangent about it. But
As we normally do.
there's nothing that you can ask us, and there's no information that we won't give you. However, when it comes to the consultation work whereby you're trying to pay us to do something for you, then we have our own ethics when it comes to that. So there's no information that we'll censor, but I'm not necessarily going to do something for you from a magical perspective or consultation. You know, we'll give you the tools, we'll sell you a gun, but we're not going to fire it for you.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the difference between a consultation and paid work. So, you know, we'll happily talk to you about anything within reason. Like, you know, I don't think it's even within reason, is it? It's pretty much anything. We're a safe space in that way. It's just a case of if you're then asking us to do the work, then that's hired work. You know, that's hitman, assassin work. Not necessarily going to agree to that. That has to fit within our personal ethics.
And if you're just looking for some free content, that kind of thing, we have a couple of groups which you can look at. Go on Facebook and go on the Witchcraft Live Facebook group. There's loads of live videos and things like that get put on there that teach you various different things and introduce different concepts. We have the Thoth TV YouTube channel, loads of videos, loads of free content on there. There's blogs on the thothwitchcraft.com website, all sorts of content, things like that on there. Even the product pages you can learn a lot from. It was almost like a book of shadows, isn't it? The way
Basically,
that we've done them.
we're about teaching. That's our primary goal. So we pack as much information into everything as we possibly can.
Yeah.
And if we miss something, you just ask, and we'll just create more content for that.
Yeah. Ultimately, if you really do want to seek, you know, a witchcraft path and really embrace that and move quickly on that, then one-on-one training is the best, whether that is through the Patreon and at a distance or whether that's physically. So what I'd suggest is if you go to our mentor page on the thothwitchcraft.com website, read through it, and then it really explains a lot better than what I think we've just explained.
Yeah, because we go off on tangents.
And
enjoy ourselves a little bit too much.
Give you some examples and things like that. So I think that's probably about it, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll put all the links in at the end so you catch all that in the bios.
So yeah, I've been Liam, still am Liam.
And sometimes I'm Chris. So
Is a drag persona as well, but we don't talk about that.
rude.
So there we go. Thanks for listening.